Hello and welcome to part two of The Mist. Where we left off, Killington had just bumped into this stranger who patted his empty pocket for some reason. Anyways, let's jump into it. Shortly after Susie left for the day, Miss decided it was time for a walk. Too many hours sitting in a house wasn't exactly healthy, and she really needed to clear her head and think about things. When a walk didn't help, Miss had a slice of pie. Frankly, things were too emotional in the mist right now to concentrate on anything, but if you couldn't feel better with a nice walk, then pie was your answer. Well, not an answer she would tell anyone else to do, but some days you just need a slice of pie. As Mist arrived back home from the pie shop, the mysterious bauble outside her house caught her attention once more. Something was different. The object didn't so much as move from the spot she knew, but things around it had definitely shifted around. The chaotic pile of river rocks that had previously laid underneath it had been rearranged meticulously placed in a blooming flower kind of design, making its patch of earth appear more miniature, making its little patch of earth appear more of a miniature monument than a tacky lawn ornament. Mist approved. I guess even things from the nothing had a flair for the theatrics, Mist thought to herself as she went inside. Mist knew nothing about the nothing, hence its name, but it was still surprising to see something like that show any ego. Or was it something that had picked up from being in this world? Mist believed in environmental influences, but it was interesting to see those rules apply to something that didn't have any rules, or at least didn't have any rules that it didn't want to have, or even had rules that didn't even apply to anything else here. For what little she could comprehend, the nothing had no structure, and for a lack of any possible words that were capable of describing it, the nothing was made of purely chaos. But the thing with chaos is that the more you understand what it was, the more often found that it was simply the same thing as order, but in reverse. That is to say, chaos had a pattern, or could have a pattern. And if you had a pattern, then you could predict it, or even build from it, possibly. But you would obviously need an equation, which Mist had, and the ability to perceive it, which Mist sort of could do. And finally, an environment where chaos could hold a pattern together without immediately breaking apart into chaos. And that's where everyone always ran into trouble with the nothing. When your species was only capable of perceiving so many things for the sake of survival, in a world where time momentarily moved linearly as one thing happening after the other, well, let's just say the topic really irritated Mist to no end, especially with what everyone expected a Mist to do in their field of work. If you wanted to live a normal life, eating, pooping, reproducing, and then the human was a perfectly good shape to be. But if you wanted to be ambitious and find out more to life than that, then a human being was severely disadvantaged. Either in resources, public support, perception, the knowledge available at the time, and most importantly, their lifespan. And never did to live most of your life without working out a particular tough problem, only to die right at the verge of a major breakthrough. And that's where Mist sort of came in. They could see more than most, and so they got together and found a way to see more of it by seeing it together. There's the... It's a lot like having more telescopes pointing at the sky, or microscopes studying diseases, or the number of processors in a computer. Having more people doing work always made work go faster, up to a point. The Mist still had to deal with all the trouble of being human, such as eating, pooping, and not letting anybody know what you're really doing, but at least they had each other. It was always a pain when other people learned what it was that the Mist could really do, because early on, Mists found out that if the word got out about what it was you could do, then people would often do something about it. And that was never and that never really worked out. Even for those people who meant well. Sometimes Miss thought it would be nice if people could understand what it was that she was trying to do, but most of the time it was bad because they would simply get in her way. That's why Miss always encouraged and supported the talented. The talented may never really know what a Miss truly was or fully understand what they could do, but they would probably love them all the same if they did. The talented were probably quite often in the same boat as a Mist in regards to dealing with people who didn't or couldn't understand how they functioned. The Mist, if you could take a minute to crudely describe them, while also being completely wrong about what they are frankly the biggest and most secret research society that had ever existed. Had ever or will ever exist. The exact number of Mists that exist is a little unknown, given that they're everywhere and they don't exactly meet up with one another. But truthfully, a more accurate description of the Mist is that they were just a bunch of wise, mostly old people who, frankly, who are fairly kind to everyone, and also enjoyed a bit of tea and a nice, polite chat now and then. I mean, they're just there to have a nice time. Just because they didn't need any device to communicate with one another and could also perceive and communicate with things far beyond anyone's comprehension was simply an added bonus. And often a mild inconvenience. But frankly, all this new technology everywhere was starting to make Miss feel a little obsolete. She could know without looking when someone was at her door, but so could anyone else with a door cam and a smartphone. She could talk across the world to any other Miss she wanted, but so could anybody with a phone or internet access. Visions of the future can easily be replaced by statistical analysis and research and be much more reliable. But if there was one thing a Mist knew, there was always going to be a place in the world for a Mist. Technology may come in or give out over time, but the Mist kept on going no matter what. After sipping her now cooled down tea, Mist began to wonder where all these thoughts were leading to. First, Mist was missing. Then there was this warning from the nothing, followed by the appearance of something from the nothing that was also occupying her front yard, and finally, a Mist had suddenly died. Oh God, that's it, isn't it? A Mist had just died. And just as the realization was starting to take form in her mind, a Mist suddenly appeared in front of Mist. This one looked much older than herself, which didn't really mean much considering just how old she was herself. They shared a brief glance with one another before Mist took a sip of tea and gestured for the other Mist to have a seat. "There is no time," the other Mist said. "A council has been called." Mist responded as promptly as she promptly set her cup down beside herself, before finding herself standing in the middle of an empty coliseum. In the middle of the coliseum, a few other Mists were standing in front of her, while overhead, the endless seats were quickly filling up with Mists of various ages, creeds, and decorations to their attire. "Mist is missing," one Mist on the floor said to all. "A Mist had also died." "A connection has been made," another Mist said, next to the first. "I have been warned by the nothing," Mist said to all. Gasps filled the Colosseum and then quickly hushed. "Something from the nothing occupies my garden as well," Mist continued. "And 4 strange occurrences happened in rapid succession. That is my connection." Murmurs filled the Colosseum with thoughts of the Mist. "Silence!" the first Mist said to the room, as it quickly hushed. "We will proceed, but proceed with caution, as if we are hunted. We have been warned, so we must act." The Colosseum of Mists all nodded in agreement. "We few will investigate," the second Mist said. The rest will be like the mist and obscure the vision of all others of our actions. The audience then disappeared, leaving mist with only the ones who were in the middle of the Colosseum floor. The first mist materialized a cozy armchair out of thin air and sat down. So, what else do you suspect? The sitting mist asked. Mist thought for a second before responding. I think we are distracted and misled. So, a mist was killed to distract and confuse us, the second mist said. Yes, Mist responded. We are emotional right now, and our emotions have clouded us. Had it not been for that warning, I'd have thought nothing more of it. Oh, the same for me. What do you think? The first said to the second. I think it's a trap to investigate, the second said. As do I, yet the trap might be that we think it's a trap, so we hesitate to investigate, the first said back to the second. As I have also thought. So, we are at an impasse, and we don't even know what the goal or the target is. What if the goal was not to have a mist? Mist supplied. If there's no mist, then there is no attention to detail that would concern a mist. So you are saying that if there were a mist there, then they would have stopped or intervened in whatever it is that someone is trying to do, the first mist asked. Exactly. A third mist spoke. All paths are clouded. To proceed is to proceed in danger. As it always has been in the mist, the first said. We will proceed then, but we won't know where we are going, so we must go. As you say then, said the third. Anything you want to add, the first said to the mist. No, she said, before remembering about the card in a flicker of recollection. Then just as quickly as the memory came, it was immediately forgotten about. You will look after the nothing for us then. Also, do keep an eye on young Misty here, the first said as she gestured towards Misty, who happened to be standing just behind Mist where she couldn't see her, just until now. Mist is missing, and Misty will need some guidance through this. Oh, yes, of course, Mist said. You are dismissed, both of you. We have much to discuss now, the first said. With that, Mist was suddenly back in her own house, along with Misty beside her. Mist took a sip of her cold tea and gestured for Misty to have a seat. After Misty sat down, Mist gazed a long, calculated look at her. So, what did you think of all that? Mist frankly asked. After thoughtfully looking at her hands for a moment, Misty said it was thoughtful and intriguing and intense. So very intense. Yes, the congregation of Mists has that effect on everyone seeing it for the first time. Mist said, taking a sip of her tea, wishing it was still warm. You get used to it when you learn not to struggle against the flow of emotions. It's better to just kind of step out of the way and let it flow by you. I've always felt it. Well, them, but never that strongly before. How can you possibly learn how to handle all that? It takes a lot of practice to ground yourself. Well, I had Mist for this stuff when I was your age, of course. She knew just what to say and how to say it. I'm not nearly as tactful as she is, but I am a Mist, so I'll do my best. But on top of that, I've had my own special training with people who are not Mists, of course, and they were exceedingly more difficult than any Mist has ever been. I suppose you're right. How do you do all this and never tell anybody about it? The words to describe it escape me. It's simply breathtaking and incredible. Oh, it's because not many people can comprehend us or even want to. It frightens them to see what we can do, and that fear alienates them from us. Because to be separate is to be different, or to be different is to be separate, and you and I both know that's not true. It's that fear of the unknown that breaks down reason. and turns it into hate. Have you ever been so mad at something that isn't working that you just start hitting it till it does, or study so hard to understand something that you just flip the books in frustration? It's a little oversimplification, but it's the same thing. It's in the nature of the universe to break things down to understand it, or make it work how they want, or to make something into something they can understand or do what they want, often without regards for how that thing feels about being broken down in the first place. But that too is how the universe works, and it's our job to set it right, if only by our own way, which is also another way of the universe. You either break things down, or you set it right, and sometimes all at once. Misty laughed. The thing is, don't take this too seriously. If other people's emotions bruise you, then let yourself heal. If you are attacked, then attack back, defend yourself, or get out of the way and laugh at their feeble attempts to hurt you, but don't hold a grudge. A grudge is a part of a bruise that needs to heal. And especially, don't pick at it or it won't get better. That's more true than you would like to believe it is, but it's absolutely true. This is a lot to take in right now. Especially after all that, Misty said. Why don't you go home and process this for a bit? You can always come back tomorrow, but in all seriousness, I have guests that are about to knock on my door that'll need attending to. With a quick, polite nod from Misty, she turned and looked at the door before awkwardly asking, how do I... you just need to think about where you are, or where you were, and then feel yourself go there. Okay, I'll give it a shot. After a moment of concentration, Misty disappeared from the room. Mist let out a deep sigh before draining the dregs of her cold tea. She then got up and opened the front door for her next client just as his hand missed the door entirely, causing him to stumble for a bit. One look at the pimply young man told Miss that this was going to be about sex, isn't it? Come in, have a seat, Miss said wearily. I'll go to the kitchen and grab a banana. But I haven't even told you what my problem was, the young man said. New girlfriend? Miss said as a matter of factly. Yes. Then go have a seat, and I'll go over the basics for you, Miss said on her way to the kitchen. Then I want you to go home and have a talk. Have your parents come and visit me. They obviously need to lecture themselves.